Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the NFC West Roundtable, powered by BetUS. Folks, do us a favor, smash that like button immediately as you come in, because we have quite an episode for you today. And sound off in the chat and let us know what team you are currently representing as we welcome in the panelists for this evening. That is right, Steezy, our Seattle Seahawks representative, will be joining us here a bit late. Let's go ahead and go around the panel, see how everybody is doing. Starting off with Jake. How you doing, dude?
I am good, dude. How are you doing, Dan?
I am doing fantastic. I wish, especially with Jesse, would have told me that it was his birthday today.
I know. He was
Jesse, trying to steal that information from us.
It's not a restaurant. It's not like we're going to have somebody go and happy birthday, Jesse.
Love it.
Roll you around in like one of those wooden horses.
Yeah, but you literally just did it.
Well, I had to.
Just happened,
Now we're committed. I mean, we love you on this panel, so he knew he was gonna get something. So he's like, I'm just gonna not even. I'm gonna say it nonchalant and hope they didn't even hear me.
Yeah. Speaking of which, so the birthday boy himself, how you doing today, man?
I'm fantastic. I promised last week that we might maybe have a conclusion to the Ayuk thing, and we don't. So you're welcome.
So
no update.
No update.
I think I'm going to step in, and I'm going to put a ban on any mention of Brandon Ayuk until
I like it.
I'm with that.
Absolutely finished with it, and I think everybody else in the chat is, not unless it, of course, is the NFC West rival fan base rooting for the downfall of the 49ers. That could definitely be a realistic take. Mike, talk to us, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Nobody's mentioned a little over 2 weeks or before football starts. Come on, yeah. But where's the hype? I'm so freaking excited, man. Another opportunity here for the Arizona Cardinals to show up. Let's go. I'm super excited. I'm excited to obviously do these roundtables with you guys every Tuesday, and ready to chop it up with you guys. Super excited.
So, Mike, we did release all of those graphics for the wide receiver rankings. Have you been looking at the comment section?
I avoided the comments and everything to imagination. I didn't go to Instagram. I posted one thing. I wanted to post that whole Iron Man thing where he just goes like this and like the explosions.
Yeah.
I wanted to post that. I completely forgot. I was just trying to cause chaos. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm trying to cause chaos.
It's Dr. Doom now.
I mean, listen, you did. You know what? I will say on Instagram and Twitter it was not that bad, but I'm trying to grow our Facebook page, and I posted them on every single NFC West Facebook page. Don't read those.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
It's okay.
People that like me on Facebook, will rip me on Facebook.
So really?
Yeah, that's Facebook.
There's some mean people on Facebook.
There are people that will be like, "Oh, Jake, I'm an OG supporter," and then that same guy will be like, "Yo, Jake just sucks. His takes suck." And then I'll get tagged in a comment. And I'm like, "Oh, yo, Jake, OG supporter here." It's like, yep. All right. There are some nice people on Facebook, but I find that is the place where even people that like you don't like you.
Yeah.
It's a very polarizing platform. So say, for example, you want to like the Roundtable Sports Facebook page, go on ahead and check that out. We have quite a bit of good content on there, mostly of Mike just getting ripped apart from his wide receiver.
Oh, my God.
But folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great episode for you today. And like I mentioned earlier, this episode is powered by BetUS, the number one sports book on the face of the planet when it comes into everything and anything the upcoming NFL season. Now, I do want to say that if you pay attention to all of these start of the season promos, BetUS hands down has the best deal on the face of the planet. We're talking, they're matching 125% of your first 3 deposits all the way up to $2,000. So say, for example, you put down 100, boom, you get an additional $125 added on top of that. And you could potentially even put down a little bit of cash on, look at these boys, quarterbacks of the NFC West, over-unders for their overall passing touchdowns going into the 2024 and the 2025 season. Chat, we certainly want you to be a part of this conversation. I'm going to start off with Mike. The Arizona Cardinals, you have Kyler Murray right now, okay? They're saying that dude, man, his line is set at 20.5. Is this an over? Is this an under to you? What are we talking?
I don't get Geno Smith is over. Like this is insane. This is insanity. Is what we're seeing here. I guess to make it short and simple here, over. I mean, I think the Arizona Cardinals offensive side of the ball has improved. I probably won't say drastically. Well, I mean, it just depends on how you feel about Marvin and what he does in his first year. And obviously, I have high expectations, but I think just the weapons in general, I think he's got them. And now I understand it's passing and not just rushing. So yeah, I can definitely very well see Kyler Murray throw more than 20 and a half touchdowns this year. We got Trey McBride. James Conner can catch them receiving touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. This is definitely an over. This is another disrespect. I feel like every time I'm on this roundtable, I get disrespected. This is an over. A very over.
Amen. Okay, got it. The over for the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Talk to me, Jesse, about Kyler Murray. So if you're putting your hard-earned cash on this,
over. This is an easy over. Easy over. 20 and a half is like, that's such a low number. Here's the thing. Kyler, I know that there's a lot of jokes about Kyler and, is he the Call of Duty guy and what have you? I will say this. I think Kyler is extremely talented. And as long as he's healthy, I mean, these are tough because you just never know who's going to get injured. But assuming health, 20 is borderline disrespectful. It really is. So that's an easy over for me.
It's an easy over. By the way, Steezy, welcome to the chat, man.
Steezy.
What's up, team?
Steez, man.
How we doing, everybody?
Dude, we're doing fantastic. Talk to us about Kyler Murray. Will he throw over or under 20 and a half passing touchdowns this year? Talk to us.
Ooh, 20 and a half. I got to go with the over. I think Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to come in and be an instant impact wide receiver one. We talked about Trey McBride before on this show. They have weapons. They have complementary weapons as well. Michael Wilson, I like what he showed down the stretch. Zay Jones as a veteran, Chris Moore. And so there's a bunch of receivers there. We've seen the talent on display in the past. 20 and a half, like what Jesse was saying, that's a little disrespectful to me. I got to go with the over. I'm smashing the over.
Have to. Jake, Kyler Murray, over under 20 and a half.
Well, I mean, he's only played at least 14 games 3 times in his career. And all 3 of those seasons, he's had at least 20 touchdowns. 2 of those seasons, he's had at least 24. So I think it's incredibly low. I mean, I think if people think that he is going to have less than 20 touchdowns, then they just think he's going to get hurt. I mean, point blank, period. He had 10 last year, only played 8 games. He had 14 the year prior, only played 11 games. Then he had 24, 26, and 20 going back to his rookie year. So, you can't give me the whole, well, he's going to have a lot of rushing touchdowns, right? Well, then why did he have 26 touchdowns in 2020? I mean, he was in his second year. You would think that would be the year where he had the most rushing touchdowns or one of them. I just think Kyler, and we've talked about Kyler on this show, and, Mike, I hear you with it does feel like the Cardinals get disrespected a lot. But I will also say this. We're here to defend you, man. When it comes to Kyler Murray, I mean, it is ridiculous. It's absolute hogwash out there in those streets. People acting like he's not a good quarterback. He's a top 16 quarterback. He's top half of the league, and he's got the talent to be top 10, and we'll see if he gets there. But Kyler Murray's a good quarterback, and I hope he stays healthy this year because he'll easily go over 20 and a half passing touchdowns.
Oh, man. Beautiful. And chat and listen, Cardinals fans right now, let us know if you were taking the over or the under when it comes into Kyler Murray's passing touchdowns. Shout out to our boy Matthew coming on in with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Hey, follower and Rams fan here. Love this roundtable thing. Keep up the good work, guys. Matthew, thank you so much, my friend.
He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. He's an OG supporter of mine. Matthew's a legend.
Shout out to Matthew, man. And guys, right before we move on right to these other quarterbacks over unders, want to shout out something that we actually have a poll in the chat right now. Okay, there's been 46 votes. We're trying to figure out who's representing their team the best. The Rams are currently in the lead, 46%, followed by the 49ers at 22%, Cardinals at 19%. It's going up, and then the Seahawks at 15%. Not only do you need to smash that like button, but also make it be known what team are you representing in the chat right now? Vote in the poll, and we're going to see who is the winner by the end of this stream. Moving on to Geno Smith. All right, Steezy, I'm not going to lie to you, dude. Right before you got on, Mike said, I can't believe that Geno Smith's line is higher than Kyler Murray's. So just to paint the picture there for you. But over 21.5 or under 21.5, give me passing touchdowns for Geno Smith in 2024. In chat, please let us know your thoughts on him as well.
Honestly, I'm going to start to sound like a broken record here, but I got to smash the over. I mean, just a couple of years ago, en route to winning comeback player of the year, Geno Smith threw 30 touchdown passes. He led the league in completion percentage, and that was without a Jackson Smith and Jigba. That was on an offense that finished dead last in the NFL. As I've said before on the show, Seattle's offense has finished dead last in snaps played the last couple of years. The only team in the NFL that finished with 1,000 or less than 1,000 snaps. And so when your team doesn't or isn't possessing the ball or doesn't have as many opportunities as the rest of the teams in the NFL, and yet you're still throwing for 30 touchdowns. I mean, all that talent, Ryan Grubb, you have a huge upgrade, not just a head coach, but an offensive coordinator. The weapons, I mean, we talk about this all the time. I honestly think Seattle has, from top to bottom, the best wide receiver room in the National Football League. That's not including the running backs. That's not including the tight ends. And so we've seen him throw for a lot more than 21.5 in years past. He has arguably the most stacked wide receiver room in the NFL. I don't expect the offense to finish dead last in the NFL as far as snaps played or opportunities. And so, I mean, right here, it's an over for me. I mean, again, he's also in a make or break situation, right? If he doesn't perform this year, if he's unable to stay healthy, Sam Howell showed lots of promise. And so I think whether he likes it or not, there's a lot of pressure on Geno Smith. But as far as talent, as far as coaching, as far as the situation, he's done it before. I don't see, unless he gets injured, I don't see how he doesn't throw for 21 or more touchdown passes.
All right. What do you think, Jesse?
I mean, I feel like BetUS is just handing out free money at this point.
Right.
21.5 is a low number, right? He threw 20 last year in 15 games, and that was on an offense that was about as anemic as it gets. So, again, unless you're banking on injury, which certainly could happen, even if he misses a couple games, he should go over 21.5. I'll easily take that line. Give me the over.
Yeah. Mike, talk to me.
Oh, man, this kind of, it was not really a tough one, but I usually
he's ready to hate.
No, right. I know exactly. No,
hey, I'm ready.
No, I'm actually turning a new leaf. I think that line is very doable for Geno Smith. It's just the reason why I'm hesitant is that I feel like Sam Howell will get an opportunity sometime down the line just because there's just a lot of unknown when it comes down to Sam Howell. So I feel like that might eat into what Geno can do. I mean, there's no question the wide receiving core is really good and they're going to score a lot of points over there, but I don't know. I'm a little hesitant. I'm going to go with the over just because, I've been a hater before. So I'll go with the over, but somewhere deep down me, I don't know. I feel like Sam Howell's going to take over.
All right, Jake, talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Geno only had 20 last year, played 15 games year before, like CZ mentioned, he had 30. I'm going to take the over here because I think we've discussed ad nauseum on this show, especially Jesse, how prehistoric that offense was last year. And he still came away with 20 passing touchdowns. It's I know I went in on this, what I called overrated wide receiver room, but overrated doesn't mean bad. DK Metcalf is still, a guaranteed bucket, if you will. He's going to score his touchdowns. Tyler Lockett's going to score his touchdowns. But Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jake Bobo are going to get better this year. That's at least the assumption, and it should be the assumption. They're young players. They showed a lot last year. So I think, and Noah Fant getting his talk, or getting paid. I think, all those guys together, I think Geno will have no issue going over 21.5 as long as he stays healthy. But I mean, we could play the health game all we want. If you go and you bet on passing touchdown, any sort of season-long prop, you're saying, hey, this guy is going over that. And you're not betting on he might get hurt. You wouldn't put a bet on, say, Kirk Cousins coming off a torn Achilles, for instance, because you don't know how that's going to go. But Geno's not coming off a major injury. Neither is Kyler, Stafford, or Brock Purdy. So for the most part, yeah, it's really going to be one of those things where you're like, is he good enough? Simply put, this year going into it, does he have the weapons? Does he have the offensive line? Does he have the offense, the scheme and everything? And is he going to be good enough to go over 21.5? And my answer is yes.
Love to hear that. And shout out to our boy Deuce for rolling on in. K1 is going to wreck defenses this year. If not, Tune. All right. He's high on Tune, man. Watch out. For Rob, K1 plus Marvin Harrison Jr. equals touchdown. T15 to Marvin Harrison Jr. touchdown. Talk a lot of smack at Jake and Norb, but it is just like teasing the bros. Deuce, we appreciate you teasing the bros, man.
Appreciate you, Deuce. I don't know where Norb is, but no, I appreciate you. I'll speak on behalf of Norb.
Right, that's a Cardinal fan. It's Deus, by the way.
Deus, okay.
Deus, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, Jake, sticking with you, man. Stafford, 23.5. That even looks low to me. Talk to me.
You know, I actually kind of like this. And I'll just say right now, he's going over it because we're doing the same injury, all that thing. I feel great about him this year, but I like this because I think it's fair. I mean, he had 24 last year. He had 10 the year before. He had 41, but then, you know, after that, you have 26, 19, 21. So it's like he is definitely capable of throwing 50 touchdowns in a season, but it's a matter of health. It's a matter of the offensive line, and the Rams' offensive line has been kicking ass and then some in preseason. So it looks like they're going to have probably the most depth that they've had in the Sean McVay era there. But they still have 3 of the 5 starters injured. We don't know what's going to happen there. In addition to that, you know, Stafford has had injury concerns in the past. Now, again, from a, you know, standpoint of, is he good enough to throw 24 touchdowns at least? Absolutely. The reason why I'm going to say that this is 100% over is because he threw 24 with Cooper Kupp 40% healthy about the majority of the season. He threw 24 to a 5th-round rookie wide receiver. Now, don't get me wrong, Puka Nacua is great. But going into that year, nobody thought Puka Nacua was going to have the season he had. Same thing, Tutu Atwell. Van Jefferson was one of the top receivers. He gets traded at the beginning of the season, right? So what I saw was a guy that was able to overcome a lot of different things, a lot of different moving pieces. It was Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua week 1 with Van Jefferson as the closeout. Then you had, you know, guys like Davis Allen had to emerge, and Demarcus Robinson didn't really come on until week 11, where he finally got an opportunity. And he's throwing to guys like Austin Trammell on 3rd down. So I think 100% he's going over 24 or 23.5. And I think, you know, Cooper Kupp is going to be the Cooper Kupp that we've known. And I think he's going to go way over 24. Or way over 23.5. But I just wanted to give them props because I think this is 100% fair based on the history of, you know, the spinal cord contusion, you know, just the injury history he's had. Because when you're doing these, again, you're not going to bet on them because of injury, but a lot of these are set in a way like they have to be fair. Hey, this line is great, but this guy's coming off an injury. Or this guy has injury history. I think it's absolutely fair for Stafford, and I mean, I'd still take the over 100% of the time.
Love it. Mike, what do you got on Stafford?
Yeah, no, it's Stafford. I mean, we've talked about it in a few roundtables back. I think we can all consider him as probably one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC West, and I have no doubt this man's going to go over. He's got the weapons. He's got the veteran. He's a really good quarterback. He'll make it happen as long as he can stay healthy, for sure. It's an over.
And so what you got, Jesse?
Yeah, I think 23.5 is fair, not only from an injury standpoint, but I also think the Rams are transitioning to a much more run-heavy team. I think they're going to want to control the clock, help out their young defense, kind of aid them along until they get through a big portion of the season. And so I can see a situation where they have a lot of rushing touchdowns. They still can put up a lot of points, but I think they're going to be a run-heavy team, and I think that that's good for Stafford long-term. I think it's good for the defense, but at the same time, Stafford is a guy that is thrown for 40 touchdowns multiple times in this league, thrown over 30 touchdowns, I think 3 times in his career. I like that number, and I will take the over.
Stacey, Stafford.
Man, again, like I said, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I'm going to smash that over. Although I do agree with Jesse that they're going to lean towards the run a little bit more. I mean, Kyron Williams is absolutely phenomenal last year. I don't know why you wouldn't want to run the ball with him. And on top of that, you added Blake Corum, who could do a little bit of everything. And so on top of that, you're also investing a little bit more on the offensive line, right? You got Jonah Jackson from Detroit on top of, the pieces that were already there last year. And so even if they were to run the ball a little bit more, I still think he could hit that over. I mean, Cooper Kupp, all the reports out of camp, and Jay could definitely speak to this a lot better than I can, but all the reports that I'm seeing, that I'm hearing, is that he's quote unquote all the way back. And we saw the last time he was all the way back. We know how much of a threat he is. Puka Nacua theoretically should build off one of the best rookie seasons we've seen of all time. I've talked about this numerous times. Demarcus Robinson was on a torrid stretch, towards the latter part of last year. The offense is stacked. And I mean, the situation, everything is there for him. Obviously, health is going to be a problem, but that aside, I mean, I don't see how he doesn't hit at least 24 or more passing touchdowns.
Got it. And then last but not least, Brock Purdy, 28.5. 28.5 for the Brockmeister. What you got, Jesse?
This one's by far the toughest one, right? 28.5 is a fair number. It's a high number. Now, he did throw 31 last year. He also did that in 16 games played. The reason I'm going to go over here, and I could see Brock Purdy having a statistical regression a little bit this year, even though I think he'll be a better player. I think on film he'll be a better player, but statistically he might take a bit of a back step. But even in that back step, you figure he probably would have had around 33, maybe 34 touchdowns if he played in that final week. I think he can get over 28.5. And the reason that I say that is I think he's going to have to play all 17 games this year. I think the division is going to be tight. I think them and the Rams are going to come down to the final week of the season. And I think Brock Purdy's going to have to suit up in that game for them to try to win the division. And so because of that, you give me the extra game, I'll take the over on 28.5.
Got it. Steezy, thoughts?
So I think here, I'm not saying that he's not capable, right? After all, I was the only person who ranked him, number one in the division. And so this might sound contradictory, but I'm actually going to hit the under here. And again, it's not because he's not capable, but I do think that Ayuk will be traded. And I'm not sure if they get a veteran wide receiver in exchange. I mean, if that trade with Cleveland would have went through, if y'all would have had Amari, Debo, Kittle, my gosh, I'm glad it didn't, right? But with the injury issues we know with Debo, even Kittle has been injury prone. With the potential of Brandon Ayuk getting traded, I just think that C-Mac is also injury prone. And so there's a lot of guys around him that are injury prone. But I do agree with Jesse's analysis that statistically, I think he could take a step back, but that doesn't mean that he's not taking the proper steps forward as a player. And so even if we see a slight dip, even if he hits 27 passing touchdowns, I wouldn't see that as as a failure of a season. And so I'm going to go with the under here. I'm not going to smash it, but I'll go with the under.
I love it. Mike, Brock Purdy, 28.5, under 28.5.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably the toughest one. And obviously, rightfully so, the 49ers are up there in terms of being one of the best teams in the NFC West. So it makes sense. And it's all the weapons. And I'm going to go under as well. Not because he can't get like Steezy's, not because he can't get there, but I just think it's going to be more C-Mac. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more run heavy. I do like Brock Purdy, don't get me wrong. It's just I think regression will happen, but not to the point where people are talking about getting rid of him. But it just kind of happens, right? So I'm going to go under on this one.
Last but not least, we got Jay.
Yeah, I mean, this is another really, I think, a fair one. And it's also a brutal line because essentially when I think of regression, I'm thinking he's going to drop like 3 touchdowns. So it's like in that sweet spot here where it's like, I'm like on the fence. I'm going to go under here because I think he actually gets to 28 touchdowns. I think he's just going to miss this one. I see a statistical regression, but as you guys know, and I've been very consistent about Brock Purdy on this channel, I believe he's much better than the consensus does. I think he's a legitimate quarterback in this league, and I think he has the capability to throw, like Jesse said, like 34, 35. Like he can do that. My thing is that I do think he's going to have a little bit of a step back this year statistically while becoming a better quarterback just on tape. Like, I think the things that you see from him this year will show you he's not just a one-year wonder. I don't know why people still use that. He's had 2 good seasons, obviously, only started 5 games the first year. But I think it's fair when it comes to Brock Purdy. I mean, 31 touchdowns. I think the 28.5 is perfect to try to, make this thing a tough one. What I will say is my decision has nothing to do with Brandon Ayuk. My decision has everything to do with the fact that I don't think Kyle Shanahan wants Brock Purdy throwing 31 touchdowns in the season. I think he'd want more of a balanced output near the goal line. And I think we're going to see that. I think there's going to be more Christian McCaffrey. I think that they're going to do some other things, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if Brock broke that. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence, but my gut is telling me he's going to have 28 touchdowns and just barely miss this. And I'm not one of those people that's going to take the over and sit there and have to sweat it out, when he can't get another touchdown in week 17 or week 18. Because I do believe with what Jesse was just saying, great point. He is going to play all, 18 weeks, 17 games. So, we'll see, but I like 28. I think that's the spot for him.
I'll tell you what, guys, you can find each and every single one of these lines on BetUS. Again, like I told you, they have the best promo in the game right now, matching 125% of your first 3 deposits all the way up to $2,000. All right, hit that link in our description and let us know in case you ever put anything down on the lines. Tweet at us at Roundtable Sports. Really look forward to seeing what you guys have in store. All right, boys. The preseason is well underway. Week 3, week 2, whatever you want to identify it as. If you wanted to count the Hall of Fame game as preseason week 1, each and every single one of your teams had a performance this week. And we want to go around the table and we really want to understand some of the big takeaways, some things that has excited you, and then also on the opposite side of the coin, things that may be a concern. Starting off with Jesse, the San Francisco 49ers ended up playing the New Orleans Saints and won 16-10. Give us your full analysis on what happened during this game, things that stood out, some good things, some bad things. Go off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most encouraging thing is that the San Francisco 49ers so far seem to have hit pretty well on the rookie class. Ricky Pearsall hasn't even stepped on the field, but overall, you've had 3 guys contribute in a big way. You've had Purdy, who they needed to contribute in a big way. You've had Renardo Green, who I think might be a starter on this team in that secondary. He's contributed in a big way. And then now you've got Jacob Cowing coming out in his first action playing well. And then Malik Mustafa is also flashed. So you've had 4 guys show that they can play in this league and doing so at a pretty high level. And Pearsall, their first round pick, hasn't even stepped on the field yet. So that's really, really good news. I would also say that the offensive line, as far as pass protection went, actually held up pretty well, considering they only rolled out 2 starters. Ironically enough, the 2 guys that played the worst were starters from last year. So take that for what it's worth. And then the one thing that I would say that the 49ers, we'll see this week. They're going to play a big chunk of their starters. So we'll see if this holds true. But it's the same thing that showed up ugly during last preseason. And people said it wasn't a big deal and it was the backups and so forth and so on. Stopping the run. I still worry if that is something they can do on a regular basis. And as good as the 49ers are, they haven't put a lot of assets into the trenches up the middle defensively the last few years. And they haven't put a lot of assets into the offensive line as far as the trenches go over there. I am worried that some teams, even in this division, can bully them a little bit along the line of scrimmage. And that is what's making me hesitant on the San Francisco 49ers going into this season. Again, you have to remember, the The 49ers are trying to win a Super Bowl. This is presumably the last year of their window. So they're going to be in the hunt. There's no doubt about that. But I'm looking at this team through the lens of, are they the best team in the NFL? Can they get over the hump finally and win a Super Bowl? Those are questions that have to be answered before I'm willing to come out and just say, yes, that is the case. So the trenches.
All right. So last question on the Niners. Give us a sleeper pick to make the 53-man roster. Someone that's been impressing in the preseason and training camp. And Niners fans, please sound off in the chat as well with your sleeper pick of making the 53.
Oh, a sleeper pick to make the 53. Wow. I'm gonna go Robinson, linebacker Robinson. Listen, they drafted 3 linebackers over the last 2 years. They also brought in Devondre Campbell. You know that they have Greenlaw and that they have Fred Warner. It's a stacked linebacker room. I haven't even mentioned Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who starts on this team. Somebody is going to get kicked off this team that you thought should have made it. And Robinson's going to take their spot. So I'll go with Robinson to unseat one of the young linebackers.
Interesting. Niners fans, let us know in the chat. And just an update on the overall poll right now, in case anybody was interested. We have the Rams in the lead right now, the poll, 53%, followed by the 49ers at 22%, the Cardinals at 16%, and the Seahawks at 9%, folks. If you have not voted in the poll, we highly suggest that you do so. And I find it funny because there are 119 poll votes, but only 41 like buttons smashed. All right, folks, we know your finger's working. All right, we know that you're exposing yourself. Smash that like button. Let's get it up to 100. I sincerely think that we can do it. Moving on. All right, we had the Arizona Cardinals play a little bit. All right, lost to the Indianapolis Colts, 21-13. From my understanding, not a whole lot of action from the starters once again. But Mike, biggest takeaways from this game, things you liked, things you didn't like.
So it's obviously when you're talking about the preseason, you're kind of, I don't know, you're just trying to like pick at things, right? Because I mean, they're not a lot of starters, but I do think that, I guess that's my job to pick, right? And to really kind of figure out what's exactly going on with this team. Now the Cardinals are 0-2 in the preseason. It doesn't matter, right? We're not caring that the Cardinals, we might go 0-3. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to see is progress from these rookies and these second-year players and these guys that are bubble guys. That's the main reason why preseason is the way that it is. But we've seen some good things, flashes here and there. Some concerns, yes, primarily in the offensive line position. We ended up drafting 2 guys this year for the trenches. We ended up getting Christian Jones as well as Isaiah Adams. Now, Isaiah Adams was drafted in the 3rd round, so a lot of people were kind of pretty high on him, but he's been struggling. And this is since this game as well as week 1. Pretty concerning when it comes down to just the way that he plays. It's kind of like a turnstile. It's actually kind of concerning. But the good thing is that we're not expecting either of these 2 rookies to be starters automatically. But another concern is that if one of our starters go down, we're going to have to use one of these guys to kind of put in there to kind of help out, fill in that need. So I guess a concern will definitely be the O-line for the Arizona Cardinals. A concern also is the outside pressure for like the edge position. Now, granted, we actually got 4 sacks, which is actually pretty cool. We got Cameron Thomas getting 2, LJ Collier, which is a former Seattle Seahawk. And then we got Xavier Thomas also, which is a rookie this year. So he got a sack. So we're getting pressure back there. But what I was praising in week 1, it didn't kind of translate in week 2. We saw a lot of missed tackles. We saw a lot of edge rushers get back there and didn't wrap up the quarterback. We saw Ehlinger, Bean, Slovin, or whatever that 3rd quarterback is from the Colts. Like, they just kind of did what they want back there. So granted, yes, we did get 4 sacks. It's pretty cool, but the tackling wasn't as crisp as I would have liked it to see. Now, granted, yes, they're 3rd string, 4th string guys, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but those are the big takeaways that I've noticed in this game versus the Colts. Now, let's talk about the positives, because people were like, oh, you're too negative. Let's talk about the positives. Xavier Thomas, which is a late round pick for the Cardinals. This is his 2nd game with the sack, and I mentioned before with the injury of B.J. Ojulari going down, there's a lot of unknown coming from the edge position for the Cardinals. Right now we got Zaven Collins, which is a guy that came in playing the middle linebacker, but now he's moved over to the edge. And then we got Dennis Gardick, a guy that's primarily special teams, but he's going to be used as edge too. So a lot of concern there, but there's a lot of praise and excitement and upside for Xavier Thomas out of Clemson. So there's positivity there. And then the QB2 battle. We're talking about QB2 battle. Clayton Tune and Desmond Ridder. I'm done with Desmond Ridder. I hope he doesn't make it. I want Clayton Tune to be the number 3, although obviously we don't want to even talk about QB2 because Kyler Murray is the guy. We're all hoping he stays healthy. But those are the big takeaways in this game. I'm not going to lie to you. It was kind of a weird game. A lot of 3 and outs, a lot of sloppiness, a lot of ugliness. But yeah. Oh, yeah. One last person. Dadrion Taylor Demerson. Another as a 4th round pick for the Cardinals, the safety, man, aka Rabbit. That guy can play. I'm concerned if Buddha is going to stay a Cardinal next year because this is last year under contract. But a lot of people were very excited about Dadrion Taylor Demerson.
What's going on with Max? Was it Max Melton?
Yep.
Your corner? How's he doing?
He's playing as a starter. So I think the way that it's going to happen is that we're going to have Sean Murphy Bunting as 1, and then number 2 is going to be Garrett Williams, which is our 3rd round pick last year. But I believe when we're having the nickel package, I think Garrett Williams is going to be moving to the slot, and then Max Melton is going to be used as the guy. But I think when it's 2 cornerbacks, it's going to be Sean Murphy and Garrett Williams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Garrett Williams is a stud.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, keep an eye on him because he had that season-ending injury with Syracuse, and I think he's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Very, very interested to see all of this come to fruition. Regular season week 1. Speaking of the Rams, we have a super chat coming in from Rams. Let's go. $5. Thank you so much. Just shouting out his fandom in the chat. Go Rams. Absolutely love to see it. Speaking of the Rams. The LA Rams also ended up having a preseason game this previous week, and they played their roommate, the LA Chargers.
The roommate that only pays $1.
And the roommate that only pays $1 for all of the fans that they have. Talk to me, Jake. What did you see from this 13-9 victory? Positives, negatives, go off.
Yeah, so I mean, to start off, hats off to Aubrey Pleasant. I thought he did a stellar job head coaching his first ball game. Sean McVay was in the booth and was just like, all right, Aubrey, I'm taking the night off. You go and do that. It's always cool to hear Sean McVay, kind of in the broadcast. They'll bring him on and he calls, plays and stuff. And, you could tell he's got a knack for it. Sorry, guys, you won't be seeing that for another 10, 20 years. But he could do it. We know he can. But no, all jokes aside, I thought Aubrey looked great. He is going to be a head coach someday. I don't know if he'll be a head coach in this division because there's a lot of good coaches in here. Maybe the Cardinals. We'll see what ends up happening. But Aubrey Pleasant, keep an eye on him. Anyway, some big stuff. I mean, even before we went live, I even haven't done a video on this yet, but Jerry Jacobs was waived injured by the Rams. We talked about Darion Kendrick tearing his ACL, unfortunately. The Rams definitely have some sort of need there at cornerback. Not sure what they're going to do. I can tell you they have been in contact with Ahkello Witherspoon, trying to get him back. I don't think he wants to come back and, have the same amount of money last year when he was the number 1 corner and play behind Trey and Darius. But, they are interested in him. They have some UDFAs there, Charles Woods and, Wallace from Michigan, Trey Tomlinson, although I don't think he's going to make the team. But some guys that I want to highlight here that really stood out. I mean, the number 1 defensive player ranked by PFF in all of preseason. Okay. And that is Omar Spates, the UDFA out of LSU. Everyone's like, if you did mock drafts, we all did. Everyone's like 7th round pick. You'd find on all mock drafts, everyone just slid Omar Spates at the bottom of their mock draft. It's kind of funny. It was a joke. Jesse, I see you lighting up like a Christmas tree over there. So you probably did the same thing, but I don't know. It was an LSU linebacker. So people are like, I'm going to get that guy. Well, he has been very good. I mean, very good. And the Rams have had a lot of success with UDFAs in the past. I mean, their organization, Corey Littleton, Ronnie McLeod, I mean, I could go back further, London Fletcher, right? So, yeah, I mean, linebacker, he's really stepped up. Jalen McCullough out of Tennessee has really stepped up in a big way. The safety, I don't know if he's going to make the team, but he's looked great. The offensive line, just to me, and I've heard Xavier Smith mentioned here and, Jordan Whittington, but you guys have already heard those names. I mean, NFL Network is talking about Xavier Smith now, okay? So I'm going to give you just the idea that, look, last week we talked about it. Well, I talked about it. I am so damn impressed with this offensive line. I can't stress it enough. I don't care that it's preseason. If anything, that's even better because I've never seen an offensive line of the Rams during preseason where I'm like, this is fun. I like watching this. Are you kidding me? It's been like watching the UFL. I mean, the quarterbacks are running for their lives and the offensive line can't protect. I mean, some guys can, but when you have a collective unit of 5 guys, it doesn't matter if you have the best left tackle in football. That right side, if it's bad, it's bad. Your quarterback is going to die. So the reality is, I think the offensive line has been great. It's been just what the doctor ordered while the Rams are nursing 3 injuries. To see guys like Logan Bruss, who they drafted 2 years back in the 3rd round, really step up. To see guys like Zach Thomas, another person's trash is another person's treasure. Zach Thomas was drafted in the 5th round out of San Diego State by the Chicago Bears, and he's doing a great job to make this team. Warren McClendon Jr., a favorite of mine out of the draft last year out of Georgia. He's played well. I mean, A.J. Arcuri's played well. And, of course, Jesse, I got to name Mr. Bo Limmer, who I'm going to say this right now.
Bo Limmer.
Bo Limmer looks like a damn starter right now. He is, I mean, let's just put it this way. If the Rams wanted to move Steve Avila to left guard again, if they wanted to move him back, Bo Limmer would start day one. He's that good. I'm watching this guy getting his jersey tugged consistently, just like around the neck and everything. No big deal. Somebody grabbed his arm, put him in an arm bar. He's moving guys with one hand. I mean, this guy is just a freak of nature. Athleticism, strength. I mean, he's got it all. I don't know why he fell. Jesse doesn't know why he fell. No one knows why he fell. I mean, normally guys who fall like that don't have the measurements, the crazy athletic profile that Bo Limmer has. So, yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to him. Bo Limmer, keep an eye on him because he might be starting for the Rams sooner than later.
I'll say this real quick because I was upset that the 49ers didn't take Limmer. They took Jarrett Kingston instead. I still would have rather had Limmer, but Kingston played this last week at left guard and center. He was pretty damn good. He was really good at left guard. He was okay at center, but he's got some of the versatility. So I'm not as mad as I once was, but yes, Bo Limmer is going to be a stud. I don't know. I don't know how he fell that far. I really don't.
Hey, no one pisses me off more than the Vikings. I feel like they got everybody I wanted. Bo Richter's killing it. You guys know I was screaming till I was blue in the face. Dwight McLaughlin. I'm like, Dwight McLaughlin, he is the steal of the draft at cornerback. They got him, and they're like, oh my God, Dwight McLaughlin's actually good. I'm like, told you, freaking told you. And Andrew Van Ginkel and the other guy that they got, Blake Cashman. Ugh. So Vikings, I got a bone to pick with you.
Those Minnesota Vikings, but karma did, rear its ugly head.
I'm not going there, Dad.
Yeah, I know. Hey, listen, it's poetic justice for you. All right. SoCal Ram 88 is saying Trent will have missed all cap. He's golfing. I'd be worried if I was a 29ers fan. The Super Bowl window shut without him. SoCal Rams 88 is coming on in.
SoCal.
And the 29ers, I'm not sure if that was a dig or if that was a typo. Have you ever been referred to as a dig? What's the significance of the 29ers nickname?
It's been 29 years since the last Super Bowl. That's actually really clever. I didn't even realize that.
Clever. That is clever.
29ers. Wow.
I just put it. I always round up to 30, and Jesse hates me for it, but 30 sounds better than 29. I don't care. It just rolls right off the tongue.
Daisy, the Seattle Seahawks ended up playing this past weekend, my friend. Why don't you tell us exactly what you saw between your 16-15 loss to the Tennessee Titans? Standouts, things you liked, things you did not like.
All right, so just to preface, none of the starters played. Mike McDonald wasn't calling plays on defense. Ryan Grubb was not calling plays on offense. And Jason Myers was missing extra points. But I think that aside, I mean, for me, Sam Howell. Well, before I get to Sam Howell, there was a report, I think it was the other day, that Geno Smith and his camp allegedly reached out to Seattle about a potential contract extension. I highly doubt he'll be extended before the season begins. And like we talked about earlier, this is a make or break year for Geno Smith. And so let's say Seattle isn't keen on extending Geno Smith beyond this year because he does have one more year on his contract after this year. And so in the event that Geno Smith isn't coming back next year, or let's say this is his last year, he did post some cryptic stuff on Instagram. Some of the song lyrics were like, you know, the last dance and, you know, how he feels like he's being taken for granted. I don't know, things of that nature. But in seeing some of the song lyrics, I was like, ooh, you know, this could be his final year in Seattle. Maybe he got rebuffed, him and his camp. Maybe Seattle was like, we're not, you know, going to talk extension until after the year because we want to see what you look like, you know, in this offense. And understandably so. And so I say that to say that if Geno Smith, if this is his last year in Seattle, I'm totally comfortable with Sam Howell taking over the reins as early as next year. I mean, after a slow start, he absolutely turned it on. In 4 drives, he led Seattle to 10 points. He finished, I think it was 11 of 14 for 153 yards and a touchdown. He just looked very poised, calm, collected. He used his legs when he needed to. He showed a lot of touch. He was accurate. He avoided sacks. He just looked like a leader, like he was in command of that offense. When Geno Smith was out for about a couple of weeks ago during training camp, he looked very shaky at quarterback, and a lot of people were turned off by his performances. And you know, these last 2 preseason games, I think he's absolutely changed the tune here in Seattle. And so if Geno Smith has to miss any sort of time, even this year, due to injury or whatever else, I'm not saying it'll get to this point, but let's say maybe he's unhappy to where he's willing to hold out or even sit out a couple of games, I'm just fine, and I'm confident in a Sam Howell stepping in and being able to help guide Seattle to a victory or 2 for as long as Geno Smith is out. And so I think to me, that's my biggest takeaway. Sam Howell looks more comfortable, and he looks a lot more poised than he did early in the offseason. And so I'm really, really high on him moving forward, and I have been ever since he was drafted out of UNC. And so I think the future is, I'm not going to say set, but it's not nearly as dark as it looked a couple of weeks ago, right, at quarterback. And so Sam Howell on offense, defensively, Derek Hall looks like an absolute menace off the edge. I mean, Seattle's pass rush, I think right now, we talk all the time about how stacked Seattle's wide receiver room is. We talk all the time about how stacked Seattle's DB room is. Look at that room, the front 7, the edge rushers. I mean, Boye Mafe was absolutely doing his thing, getting after the quarterback. Derek Hall, I mean, last year he didn't show a lot, but this year, and I know it's the preseason, he showed a lot to me. And Darrell Taylor, I think that a lot of people have kind of, you know, given up on Darrell Taylor. I thought he looked good coming off the edge. What's it called? Who else is there? Uchenna Nwosu. You know, we've talked about him and how maybe he was Seattle's most underrated player on defense last year. The moment that he went down with a torn pec, Seattle went from having a top 5 rushing defense to a bottom 5 rushing defense. And I'm not saying that's entirely on him, but clearly he's an integral part of this defense. Leonard Williams, obviously, he's going to be more in the interior. Jaron Reed, Draymond Jones, Byron Murphy. They're still double teaming Byron Murphy in preseason. And so this defensive line, the edge rushing core, the front 7, I mean, I think they're going to absolutely wreak havoc this year. A guy that I like, who a lot of people aren't talking about, especially the national media, running back out of Boise State, George Holani. He didn't get a whole lot of run here. He finished the game with 2 carries for 3 yards, but I just absolutely love the way that he runs, the physicality, how violent. He, I think, is a guy that not many expect him to make the final 53-man roster. I think he'll be Seattle's 4th running back. I mean, he fits absolutely perfect with what Seattle wants to do, smash mouth football. He just reminds me of a lesser version, and I say that respectfully, of a Thomas Rawls. He runs hard, and he's looking for contact every time out. He's improved as a pass blocker. And so George Holani is a guy that I think everyone should watch out for. As far as negatives, I kind of spoke on this a little bit, but Jason Myers, I mean, it seems like ever since he's joined Seattle, I mean, for the most part, he's been reliable. I can't get on him too much for missing an extra point, but I feel like the last couple of years in Seattle, he missed a couple of I think, and I guess it's easy for me to say this, right? But he's missed easy kicks, right? And so missing extra points in the preseason, I mean, that's never a good thing, especially when, fans have had issues with him, in years past. And so missing extra points in preseason, that's never a good thing. PJ Walker as Seattle's quarterback 3, man, I like PJ, but he looked absolutely disastrous as a QB3. As soon as he kind of stepped into the game, Seattle stopped scoring points. Seattle stopped moving the ball. Seattle stopped. There was nothing right on offense ever since he stepped into the game. And so in the event that Geno Smith goes down, Sam Howell starts, and PJ Walker's forced to be the QB2, I'm not sure how that's going to look. But aside from those two negatives, I don't have too much, just because, again, starters didn't play, coaches didn't coach. But I will say this, though, for the final thing, or to close off, Seattle had great joint practices with the Titans. Reek Williams was absolutely shut down. Devin Witherspoon was over here picking the ball off and handing it over to Jamal Adams on the sidelines. And so, this defense is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But I can't wait till the season starts.
So there you have it, folks. All of the preseason recaps. Now, we are about to take a little shift here, and we're going to identify the key weakness to each and every single team in the NFC West. But with a little spin, we're not hearing from the representative. We're hearing from their counterparts to stir up a little conversation. Right before we hear from our next sponsor, Shinesty. So now, you'll probably notice that half of our representatives at Roundtable Sports always have their undies in a bunch when it comes to their favorite NFL team. And listen, I'm sure that they're getting sick of that feeling where they're feeling a wedgie rather than a warm hug. Maybe they want to say goodbye to uncomfortable chafing and hello to the softest underwear they will ever wear. Well, folks, let me introduce you to Shinesty.com, the underwear company that is here to revolutionize the underwear game. Let's be honest, life is too short for boring undies. These are so soft, y'all. You won't even realize you're wearing them. With the moisture-wicking technology and a perfect fit that never rides up, you'll quite literally feel like your balls are floating on a cloud all day long. And look at some of these absolute designs. And get this, folks. If you use our code at checkout, you can get an additional 15% off your order, RTS15. Remember, supporting our sponsors is a way to support us over at Roundtable Sports. So stop neglecting your balls and give them the gift of Shinesty underwear. Link is in description. Fun fact, Seahawks fans. Norb mentioned that he had this from this website. They actually do have the suit. They have the full-on Seattle Seahawks suit.
Wow. Right, it's on sale.
And it's on sale, baby. And you also take a look. Have no fear. Oh, we got one for the LA Rams, too. Look at that, folks. All you Rams fans in there.
Not good.
Really try to doctor up, all right? Your sideline gear. Shinesty does have these suits in here, man, all right? If you were interested. Go ahead.
I can hear someone complaining about the logo right now.
Oh, yeah. But, hey, you know what? It's retro. It is absolute retro, baby. Check it on out. I think that all they have is the Rams and
that's all they need.
The Rams and yep, okay, that's it. All we have is the Rams and the Seahawks.
We'll take that.
Don't even matter. It's beautiful. Rams fans, Seahawks fans. You want to hop on into the magic. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you check it on out. Link is in the description. All right, guys, listen. I think that we've learned a little bit from the preseason. We know based off of last year's roster. I want to talk about things that you look forward to exploit, the weaknesses, the Achilles heel of each and every single team in this NFC West. I'm starting off with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm starting off with Jesse. Jesse, biggest weakness for the Arizona Cardinals, something you look forward to exploiting and watching the rest of the NFL exploiting in 2024.
Yeah, I talked a lot about the trenches for the 49ers and what could potentially be a problem versus some of the other NFC West teams. Fortunately for the 49ers, the Cardinals are not one of those teams that I think will give them a problem. I look at the Cardinals, and I don't know how they're going to consistently create a pass rush. And so because of that reason, I think that Brock Purdy can camp, do his thing, and absolutely pick this defense apart. I think the secondary is good and up and coming, but it's really hard to cover for more than 3-4 seconds at a time. And I just don't know who on that defensive line can consistently get home and create pressure. And for that reason, that's the route I'm going to take here.
Steezy, what do you got on the Arizona Cardinals? Your observations, biggest weakness over there?
Man, honestly, I'd have to say really just a lack of experience. I mean, I don't know if that sounds like a cop-out, but I just think that as far as pieces on offense, they have just about everything they need, right? I mean, you have a quarterback. You could probably work on the offensive line just a little bit. But I think that with what we saw last year, they're just such a young team. They have so much young talent. And in a division as loaded as this, I really feel like inexperience is going to be the biggest thing holding them back. But as far as teams with some of the brightest futures in the National Football League, I'd have to put the Cardinals there. So my answer is really just inexperience.
And so what you got, Jake?
Well, the biggest problem for the Cardinals is that they have to face Kyren Williams twice this year because they don't even want to see him again. But no, all jokes aside, it's the lack of pass rush. I mean, let's be honest here. And you know, it's not really their fault. They addressed it, and unfortunately, BJ Ojulari got hurt. So it's not like, you know, they're rolling out just anybody. I mean, I think Gardeck is solid. He's somebody that probably is not a household name, but maybe he should be. He's a good player, you know, and they have guys like that. But at the same time, they don't have a closer. And what I mean by that is you look at like a Nick Bosa, right? Nick Bosa can win you a game. At the end of the game, Nick Bosa can get that closing sack. Aaron Donald, like with the Rams, he was able to do that. Von Miller in the Super Bowl. I think of guys like that. And I think, you know, Seattle might have a guy or two. You know, I mean, it remains to be seen, but I mean, it was already, you know, talked about, you know, Derek Hall, you know, kind of taking that next step. But I think Arizona needs a closer. I would have liked to see them, as a football fan, not obviously a representative of the Rams here. I would have liked to see them go out and try to get, I mean, I guess not with the whole, you know, everything that's going on with Reddick, but I would have liked to see them go out and try and get Judon. I think Judon really would have helped them. I think he would have been a great fit. He's a veteran presence, but he's also a guy that can be that closer for you. I understand the Darius Robinson pick. I also think they probably could have gone a different direction there as well. I just don't feel like they have a true closer. I think Robinson is probably the closest thing to that, and that's more so hoping he can be that. I don't hate this team at all. I think they have some things. The offensive line does need a little work, but the biggest weakness, I think, for the Cardinals is what pass rush is going to. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the 49ers offensive line, the Rams offensive line, Seattle's offensive line, which is new and improved, like, is their pass rush going to even get through to the point where it's going to be competitive enough where you're rushing throws, you're forcing turnovers? I don't know if it is.
Mike, so did anything resonate?
No, I agree with the pass rush. Definitely something that we've been clamoring about for a long time. You know, me jumping on my soapbox, I think Judon would have been a perfect fit. And I think the big problem I think we're dealing with Cardinal fans is that, like, Monty Ossenfort has a very, very specific way of rebuilding. Or, you know, obviously we can't get into a set, but with what he's done, you know, in the 2 years we've seen, he loves the draft. He loves draft capital. And a lot of people seem to think that, oh man, Matthew Judon wouldn't do it. He wouldn't fit. I mean, honestly, like, it would, right? Because I've actually had this on my show here. I asked my co-host, I said, do you think a good pass rush can win you 1 or 2 games in the NFL? And yeah, the answer is yes. You need somebody who's going to be able to get you those crucial momentum swinging type of moves. And right now we're rolling with, you know, Zaven Collins, was the former first round pick. And, you know, he just got extended, and, you know, nothing negative about him, but he's kind of playing out of position. Now, if he flourishes here, then cool, I'll shut up and we'll see what happens. But Dennis Gardeck, and, you know, he's had a really good season with the Cardinals at edge, but then he got hurt. So there's just like, there's a lot of things coming against the Cardinals. And it definitely, that pass rush is really, really scary, especially in the NFC West with the quarterbacks that there is, with Stafford as well as Purdy. You don't want to give him more time. Sorry, Geno as well. You don't want to give him more time than, you know, than they should. So yeah, I agree.
And the Arizona Cardinals. And folks, please sound off in the chat and let us know your takes what it is. Seems like the trend seems to be the pass rush. My boy, $5 donation comes in once again. Our weakest point is Mr. United Nations Christian Jones. Our strongest point is Marvin Harrison Jr. and D-Rob. I think people are overreacting about our pass rush. Exclamation
point. Eric Dane says the Cardinals' biggest weakness is Call of Duty tournaments.
Call of Duty tournaments, man. Listen, 142 of you in here right now rocking with us at the NFC West Roundtable, guys. Please do us a favor. Smash that like button on your way in. Only 64. I think that we could easily get up to 150, guys. Hit that like and then also vote in the poll. Let us know what team you are here currently representing. As we move on to the LA Rams, as far as their biggest weakness. All right, I'm going to start off with Mike here. Mike, looking at the LA Rams, all right, what's something that you think the NFL and their opponents on schedule may be able to exploit this year in 2024?
It's kind of a tough one. I mean, you know, kind of looking at the roster, it seems to be a really well put together roster. So it's kind of hard to really pinpoint to say this is the biggest weakness. But I mean, right now, I guess I'm going to go with an answer that probably, you know, I'll probably eat my words later on, just because I don't really know these players doesn't mean that, you know, they're not good. But I would say just the absence of Aaron Donald is what I'll probably say in terms of, you know, what we can do to expose him. Now, I'm looking at who they ended up bringing in. Braden Fisk, I was actually pretty high on him as well. And I think that you guys got Colby Turner. But I do think that the absence of Aaron Donald is probably going to be a big one. And in terms of exploiting, I feel like the Arizona Cardinals should absolutely take advantage of that. And we know that, man, Aaron Donald wreaked havoc on this offensive line for years and years and years. And just his presence almost kind of felt like we just fell down just for the heck of it, because he was kind of like in our face. So I would say that would be the biggest thing. I feel like the NFC West can exploit just his presence not being there.
Got it. What you got, Jesse?
I mean, right now their biggest issue is health, but just from an X's and O's standpoint, I'll go the linebacker room. I mean, I look at, especially from a 49er fan standpoint, they've got some young talent there, but it's unproven for the most part, and it's still a room that I think could use an extra body or two. And when I look at the way that the 49ers dissect teams offensively, I mean, they do it through Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, Juice. They have multiple weapons that can exploit even the best of linebacker rooms. And so when you have a linebacker room that is not proven and is probably the weakest point on that team, I think from a player recognition standpoint, that has to be it. So I think the linebacker room, although again up and coming, probably needs another player or two before I think they're very formidable foe.
Stacey, Rams.
So I'm nitpicking here because, I mean, you guys have heard me. I do like the Rams as, you know, one of the biggest threats in the NFC. And so I like what Mike brought to the table. I like what Jesse said. And I do agree. But just because I want to bring something new into the air, I guess I'm just going to look at, can Tre'Davious White, can he return to form? Right? Because if I'm not mistaken, he's actually torn his ACL twice now, you know, in his career. I could be wrong, but and Jake, wait, real quick, can you speak to that?
I think it's an ACL and an Achilles. So literally the two worst injuries that you can have.
Right. And so to me, it's like, you know, last year the Rams were just fine with the Nikello Witherspoon, right? And obviously he's not on the team any longer. Tre'Davious White, if healthy, he doesn't even have to return to form, but if healthy, I mean, he's still an above average and one of the better corners in the National Football League. But like Mike talked about, I mean, as good and as young as the defensive line is, I mean, Kobe Turner, he almost won Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. Braden Fisk and then a Jared Verse. I mean, my gosh, the two FSU teammates. There's a lot of talent there, but I think that if Trey White, if he can't return to form, if he's not healthy, if he's not what he once was, if he's not anywhere near what he once was, then I'm not going to say he's going to be a liability. But again, here I am nitpicking. And so I don't really think there's too much else to bring up other than, right, they have to navigate life without Aaron Donald. The linebacking core, yes, the names aren't as notable, but can Trey White return to form? I think for me, that's the biggest thing that I have to, I guess, bring up about the Rams.
So what resonated with you there, Jake?
Well, I'm going to tackle in typical Jake fashion. I'm going to tackle all three of them. So let's start with Mike. Aaron Donald. You can't replace Aaron Donald, just like you can't replace Tom Brady or LeBron James or Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky, right? So I'm very curious to see, because it almost coincides with Jesse, because he says the linebackers, which I'm not going to sit here and say the linebackers are a bunch of all pros. Ernest Jones could be. He's fantastic. After that, they really like Roseboom and Reeder. I like those guys, but I actually have kind of a feeling that Hummel and who I mentioned earlier, Omar Spates, are actually better than those two. Now, normally I'd say, well, the Rams, predominantly only use one inside linebacker. They have safeties that can play linebacker, but they were doing those things with Aaron Donald. So now I think they're going to have to change up their approach. I hope they know that. I don't know if they do. They could be going into this like, we're going to keep doing, see what works. And then, no, they're too smart for that. So I would say to Mike, definitely don't hold your breath on that, because Aaron Donald was at camp and he's very, very high on Braden Fisk. He thinks he's going to be an absolute stud. I think 95, Bobby Brown, the third, incredibly underrated. Tyler Davis is having a great preseason. Desjuan Johnson and Carlos Watkins, who's just, another guy. He just was dominant in preseason the last game. So I think the defensive line I actually feel really good about. Linebacker, I feel really good about if they keep Omar Spates and Jake Hummel. If they cut those two and then they roll with three, with Ernest Jones kind of being a little banged up here and there this offseason, I would be very concerned. I'm going to lean towards Steezy here, but you didn't say the full thing. So here's the thing. The cornerback room I had an issue with before Darion Kendrick was ruled out for the year. Okay. I said they need to sign you see the Witherspoon jersey in the background. I said they should have brought back I think Akella Witherspoon is better than Tre'Davious White. I think Akella Witherspoon might be better than Darius Williams. And I think Akella Witherspoon was very, not only underrated, but underappreciated by a lot of people last year with what he was asked to do. He was really on an island last year. You look at the average target, it was like 20 yards downfield. He really was just kind of left out there, and he made the most of it. Now they are in, like I said, they are interested in bringing him back, but currently, as the roster stands right now, guys, it's Tre'Davious White, who we just talked about having the two worst injuries, and I'm going to say it's the two worst injuries after breaking your neck, which is by far the worst. So yeah, after that, the two worst injuries, ACL tear, Achilles tear. So we don't know what he's going to be like. Dan knows probably as much about Tre'Davious White as anybody, and he's a great guy. People love him, and the Rams love him, and he's very happy to be there. But if he plays more than 6 games, I'm going to be very happy. I'll tell you that much. So I am very concerned about his health. Darius Williams was already banged up in training camp, so he's had some injury stuff. D-Will is incredible when he is healthy. When he is on, he's one of the best in the league. The first half of the year last year for the Jaguars, he was stellar. Down the stretch, he struggled. Then you have Kobe Durant, who his rookie season, he looked like he was going to be a superstar. And then his second year, he took a major step back. And now in his third year, they're saying that he's really making strides, but they also said that in his second year. So I like him a lot, and I think he's capable, but he hasn't really proven anything to me. And then after that, they just cut Jerry Jacobs. They waived him injured. So who's the fourth guy? Do they keep 5? Like, it's a bunch of UDFAs right now. Guys that I think have a shot to make the roster: Josh Wallace from Michigan, Charles Woods, and the other one who's on the team last year, Trey Tomlinson. But guys, this is by far the weakest spot on the Rams. If one of them goes down, we're talking guys starting that were barely starting in college, right? Maybe not, but it's not going to be pretty. So I know right now they don't want to pay Ahkello Witherspoon. And I know Ahkello Witherspoon doesn't want to take any deal that was exactly the same as last year because he proved himself. He took a prove it $1 million 1-year deal. He proved it. And now he's being asked to play second fiddle behind Tre'Davious White and Darius Williams, being told essentially he is not going to compete for the starter role. Well, I think the Rams don't have a choice but to pay him a little bit more than maybe they want to, because I hate to break it to you, but I trust that guy who just started 18 games in a row more than I trust Tre'Davious White, who is trying to make a comeback from his second major injury in the last 2 years. So I would say cornerback guys for the Rams is absolutely the biggest concern for me. Now, their safety room is excellent. I think it's excellent for a reason. They definitely want to make sure they have the depth to overcome that.
You know what? I changed mine too, because I think whenever you're clamoring for Witherspoon to come back and be on your roster, it's a major weakness. So he
was great last year, though. He really was.
Yeah, he was. Aaron Donald, realistically, do you think there's any shot? Because I get this feeling that you get to the final 4 games or so of the regular season, you're going to see Aaron Donald back on this roster. I really do.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'll say this. Don't be shocked. But also don't assume. Like, I wouldn't ever rule it out. His locker, by the way, is still there. He's got the whole 99 everything. Aaron Donald, he's in the locker room. Everything is set up. If the Rams know, like it's 2021, or even like last year, they were the hottest team at the end of last year. If they're ripping off 7-8 wins in a row, and this team, they have the number 1 seed, and they really feel like, okay, this team is going to win the Super Bowl. Hey, Aaron, you want to come and play 4 games for us, like Eric Weddle did? Because they've already done this before. I mean, Eric Weddle was 2 years out of retirement, and they're like, hey, we need you. We need you to actually start. Like as soon as you get here. He was starting at safety in the playoffs. I would not rule it out. I would not. I don't even know, and I mean no disrespect, AD. I don't know if they're going to need it necessarily. I think it's more so the cornerbacks are the biggest concern for me. But I'll never turn down seeing Aaron Donald rush the passer again. I can tell you that much.
Definitely appreciate that. Right before we move on to the biggest weaknesses of the San Francisco 49ers, once again, need to show a little bit of love right over to our proud sponsor, BetUS, who ended up powering everything at Roundtable Sports, folks. At the beginning of this episode, we went through over-unders for quarterback passing touchdowns. Guys, I want to remind everybody of hands down the best promo in the game when it comes into sportsbooks. They're matching 125% of your first 3 deposits all the way up to $2,000. All right. This is the best promo on the face of the planet, guys. And there's so many different options of what you can look around for on BetUS. They already have, hear me out, they already have the week 1 lines. So for anybody that is feeling a special type of way about how their team is going to perform, as you can see, the full slate of week 1 is already here. Go ahead and hit that link in the description. Show some love right over to BetUS, a big part of Roundtable Sports, and we will be making sure that quite a bit of content is circulated around that. Moving to the San Francisco 49ers, all right, maybe outside of the fact that they have a couple of players sitting out, hopefully finding a new contract at this point. Starting off with Mike, from your eyes, okay, biggest weakness from the San Francisco 49ers?
The thing that I could probably say is probably the O-line, I want to say. Just because Trent Williams, I mean, obviously they got other players as well, but I'm going to keep it probably short and sweet. I do think there's a really good team, but, we're probably nitpicking at this very moment. But I will say the O-line for them. So I'll go the O-line.
Steezy, what you got?
I know last year, especially during the playoffs, Jesse was really harping on this, but I know that you guys signed Leonard Floyd, but until I see it on the field, Drake Greenlaw obviously is not going to be there. Talanoa Hufanga is coming off a torn ACL. And so are you guys finally able to get pressure on the outside opposite Nick Bosa? Because ever since he was signed, Javon Hargrave just has not been what he was in Philly or even in Pittsburgh. And so to me, I think, and again, we're also nitpicking because this is a Super Bowl worthy roster, right? And so if I'm looking aside from the injuries, aside from Trent Williams' absence, aside from a hypothetical Brandon Ayuk trade, until I see it, in game, has that finally been addressed? Pressure opposite Nick Bosa. That's my answer.
Jake, biggest weakness of the San Francisco 49ers.
So I feel like I'm going to contradict myself here because I think I made a point earlier about the Cardinals pass rush, and I was like, yeah, the Rams, the 49ers, and the Seahawks all have good offensive lines. I don't think the 49ers offensive line is terrible. I do have my concerns. I guess, guys like Colton McKivitz, Chris Hubbard. I don't like Jake Brendel at center. I don't think I would expect a Kyle Shanahan coach team to have like a better center, I guess. I don't know. So I have issues there. I think Aaron Banks is a good player. I don't think he's amazing, but I think he's a good player. I mean, I think Dominic Puni is going to be an absolute freaking stud. And I'm not worried about Trent Williams, but I do think 3 out of the 5 offensive linemen, I'd say 2 out of the 5, they're big question marks for me. Right tackle, I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. That could be a very big weak link. And then, I hate to throw this one out, but you're only as good as your center on the offensive line. And I really think Jake Brendel holds them back. So I'm glad they didn't go out and, draft somebody like Avila last year. I'm glad they didn't get Bo Limmer. But I'll tell you right now, Bo Limmer, I'd be scared. I'd be scared as hell of this offensive line if Bo Limmer was next to Dominic Puni and Trent Williams and Aaron Banks. I mean, man. So, yeah, I think the offensive line, I think you could make an argument for essentially you mentioned the run game, the trenches, Jesse. I think that's definitely fair. The corners, I know people are going to, because they're not like household names, right? Not everybody knows Isaac Yiadom. Well, I do, and I like him a lot. So I think Yiadom's a stud. I think Lenore has really, come on. And I think that cornerback room, while young, and you did mention Renardo Green, I think they have a bunch of guys that just work. Like, they're just going to work out. I don't have any issue with the pass rush, with the 49ers, because they did add Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd is also back with Brandon Staley. So do not underestimate him. I think that was a great pickup, very underrated. And I'm very curious to see. And I know you've said it before, Nick Sorensen isn't technical. Like, he is, but he isn't the defense coordinator, or he is the defensive coordinator.
He's the defensive coordinator. I think that Staley certainly is kind of like the mad scientist behind it. He's like the McDonald, the way that Shanahan used to run things, right? Like, he wasn't necessarily the play designer all the time, but he was the play caller. I think Staley's going to be the major play designer, and then Sorensen's going to be the play caller.
Yeah, see, I think that is really smart to keep Staley where he's going to thrive. I think their defense has a chance to be absolutely disgusting. But yeah, I think the run game, and then again, going back, I'm just rambling here, but the offensive line, I would say, is the biggest weakness when I look at the 49ers.
God. And so did anything resonate with you there, Jesse?
Yeah, certainly. I think D-line depth is a question mark, but the 49ers always seem to pull off a midseason trade for a defensive lineman, so I'm sure they'll do it again. But yeah, offensive line is highly neglected, and I'll just piggyback off of what Jake said. Kyle Shanahan himself 3 years ago said the heartbeat of his offense is the center, and he's proceeded to roll out Jake Brendel, who's about as mid as it gets. So I don't, those two things don't go together, and the 49ers have done almost nothing to address the offensive line, even though Trent Williams, who's clearly their best offensive lineman, could retire at any time. So yes, that is the biggest weakness. It's the offensive line.
He's as mid as it gets. Jesse did not hold back there.
As mid as it gets coming on in. The snail just came in. Coaching with a lead is the Niners' biggest weakness.
Dang.
Coaching with a lead coming on in. And then Rams Let's Go also chimed in and said the Rams secondary makes me nervous.
Corners. Don't clump the safeties in there.
Don't clump them in there. It's just on the perimeter. All right. Last but not least, we have the Seattle Seahawks. All right. A lot of question marks about this with the new head coach at the helm, different scheme. Jake, talk to me, man. Biggest weakness from the Seattle Seahawks in your eyes?
The biggest I would say the biggest weakness from the Seattle Seahawks is going to be, and I feel bad saying this, it's going to be the pass rush. Now, I don't think they have too many weaknesses, and I don't even think it's a bad pass rush, but it is unproven. You have a lot of guys like you mentioned, Uchenna Nwosu, huge fan of his game. He's kind of like one of those hybrid linebacker edge guys that can play off ball and what have you. But yeah, I mean, Derek Hall, you mentioned Darrell Taylor. Everyone's been waiting for Darrell Taylor to kind of take that next step, and he hasn't really done that. Is this the year? And so yeah, I do feel like Seattle is definitely missing a closer. I mean, they're missing even like a Jadeveon Clowney at this point. Like when they had Clowney, like they're missing that physicality, I would say. Now, I have mentioned that Mr. He had 7 sacks in a row, whose name's totally escaping me. Boye Mafe. He's going to have to be that guy. So if Mafe takes a step like further, because last year was great, but if he takes a step further and can be that, again, I say closer. I mean, you got to have one of those. I mean, I think the 49ers have that with Nick Bosa, no doubt. I think Leonard Floyd could end up being that. I think he's that good. And then, with the Rams, you have, in my opinion, I think Jared Verse is going to be that. Kobe Turner is going to be that. But, with Seattle, off the edge, do you have a guy like that? I think Boye Mafe is really kind of the deciding factor there. But I also think you do need another guy. So if Derek Hall continues this and he looks this good in the regular season, I think you guys are going to be fine. It's really more so a nitpick because say what you will about Seattle, they may not be the best team in this division, but they're very balanced. Like they don't have, just tons of needs. They have a lot taken care of. And so that it makes it tough. Like when you ask me, hey, what's Seattle's weakness? It's like, well, do they really have any? I mean, I guess I'm just going to be very picky and say the edge, but that's not an easy one.
Mike, what you got?
I agree. I'm looking over the depth. I mean, they seem to have really, really good pieces, like young pieces over there. So, Steezy already knows, and Norb knows, I really do like their wide receiving core. The running back, they got some studs over there as well, as long as they could stay healthy. Honestly, I would say their biggest weakness, and it's probably coming off from just the hater, I gotta say the quarterback. Geno Smith is probably their biggest weakness to me, in my opinion. I mean, because honestly, I truly do think it's going to be Sam Howell. Yeah, you guys got to think of the future. Like if he's already talking contract extension and this is a make or break for you, I mean, Geno Smith's not the answer for 2 or 3 years down the road. It's just not it. I think Sam Howell, there's a lot more questions that need to be resolved. So I would say the quarterback position is the biggest weakest point for you guys because you guys have a really solid team, like really solid. And if Sam Howell can be like just a tick better than Geno Smith, like you guys could make some noise. It's just your team is really good. If I would have to say one weakness, I would say Geno Smith and the quarterback.
Okay. That's what you got, Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, I almost went linebacker room just because I think that there's something to be desired there. But when I look at McDonald and how he develops linebackers and how he just overall is a coach on defense and with a secondary as talented as they are, I also think the pass rush is actually going to be pretty good this year. The trenches will be good for them this year. I think they can hide those linebackers a little bit. So because of that, I'm actually going to agree with Mike. And not because I think Geno's awful. I think Geno's probably 22nd best quarterback in the league. He's certainly a starter in this league. But when you compare that to the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFC West, if you go into every division game that you have outgunned at the most important position in football, it's hard to overcome that. And that's something that they're going to have to do 6 times this year, assuming health at the other quarterback positions. And I think the team is very good. I think this team can win 10 games and make the playoffs, but that's going to all ride on what Geno Smith can or cannot deliver. He's just the worst of the 4, and it's the most important position in football, so I have to go quarterback.
That's what you got, Steezy. And do you agree with these guys?
To a degree, I agree with everyone. You know, with what Jake was saying at first, I was a little perplexed. But then when he talked about, needing a closer, until we see him actually prove it on the field, Boye Mafe is not the closer, even though I expect him to be. His play fell off a cliff after Uchenna Nwosu was out for the year. And so, last year, although I loved what I saw from him, I mean, I want to be able to see him perform. Let's say injuries occur, I still want to see him perform. And coming out of college, I mean, he was already as raw, as it gets. And so just to kind of see this level of progress, I think he's only going to continue his ascent. But I'm going to actually come up with my own weakness, and I'm still going to stick to the interior of the offensive line. I know Connor Williams is supposed to be a huge upgrade, but again, coming off for torn ACL, I still need to see it on the field. LaKen Tomlinson, I know it's up against Jeffrey Simmons. He's one of the very best in the business, but he was getting his stuff handled by the Tennessee Titans, during joint practice. And I know he's a veteran guy, but he was absolutely atrocious last year with the Jets. And I know the supporting cast was awful, but there's a lot of inexperience with this group playing together, right? And Christian Haynes, I believe that he was the best guard to come out of this year's draft. And right now he is the favorite to start at right guard out of UConn. But again, these guys haven't played together, and there's a lot of inexperience there. And that was Seattle's biggest weakness last year. And so until I see it all unfold on the field, I'd have to say the interior of the offensive line. But I also do think that with what everyone said, you guys all made great points. As much as I love Geno Smith, I mean, yes. And I know my rankings don't reflect that, but he is the least talented quarterback in this division. I believe that Kyler Murray is more dynamic. My only argument against that was that he just hasn't been healthy. And so, you guys all make great points, but I'd have to say the interior of the offensive line. Excuse me.
Have to love it, folks. We're going to be unpacking quite a bit on the NFC West Roundtable, and have no fear, in just a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be discussing game previews, then game recaps, then how the division looks, man. So if you have not subscribed to the channel and turn on those bell notifications, please do so, folks. We're live every single Tuesday at 9 p.m. EST. Now, let's go around the panel, say our farewells, and also, guys, let them know what you have planned for your specific individual brands on your channel this week. Chat, I highly recommend that if you enjoy trolling any of these guys, all right, it's even more exciting to do it on their own specific channels as well, all right? Let's go on ahead and show them some love. All of them are linked in this description. Jake, what's going on your channel this week, man?
Well, now I have to do a video about, Jerry Jacobs getting waived injured. I don't know where they go from here, but we'll be doing that. After the week, we'll do a 53-man roster projection. And we'll have some stuff, Downtown Rams podcast, just kind of, some miscellaneous content to get you through, because we're almost here. Thank God for it.
Absolutely beautiful. Mike, what about you, man? What's going on the AZ Sports Fan?
Just a lot of continuing to talk about preseason for one more week, thank God. And then we can actually start talking about real football. So we're also going to be doing a 53-man roster, reacting to the actual 53-man roster. But knowing the Cardinals are 53, it's just never set. Like we're probably going to pick some people off from people's like waivers and stuff. So we're going to have a lot of turnaround with it under 53. So a lot of news coming for the Cardinals. I'm excited.
Stacey, talk to us.
Yeah, for me, I just want to say to everybody, I mean, thanks for tuning in at Roundtable Sports, NFC West Roundtable on YouTube. Y'all keep running it up. Y'all keep showing love, sharing this channel with as many of your friends as possible, especially with the season on the horizon. Once you go ahead and do that, you can go ahead and look for me, Ask Steezy A. Smith. I don't want to speak too soon, but I'm going to just speak it into existence. I have interviews coming up with Tariq Woolen, Jake Bobo, Seahawk legend Lofa Tatupu, all coming up. Daryl Taylor, I'm hoping. I'm going to meet up with Jaron Reed later this week. And so I'm just going to have a whole bunch of interviews on my channel for the next, I don't know how many weeks. I know after because this is the final preseason weekend, and so players are going to have a whole week off before the regular season starts. I'm hoping to conduct some of those during that time frame, because I know right now everybody is busy, and so just look forward to a bunch of interviews. That's really a bunch of what I have coming, and I'm going to go back to live streaming during the week once the regular season comes around. So there's that.
Everyone go smash the subscribe button for Steezy. Right. He comes in here and he coexists so easily, integrated so easily. He's filling in for Norb, and he does such a great job. I don't think he gets enough love. So I've always been a fan of your work. I think you do a hell of a job, and it's even harder, in my opinion, to come into a roundtable where, I mean, you knew me a little bit, but it's like actually getting the chemistry down where we all have chemistry in this 5-person thing, because Dan, it's really impressive, man. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I hope people are watching and are appreciating the job that Steezy does.
Absolutely, man.
Enough to make a grown man cry, man. Thank you.
Show Steezy A. Smith. Show Steezy A. Smith on YouTube some love. Go subscribe over to his stuff and watch those interviews. I'm going to be definitely tuning in right to the Woolen interview. That is for sure. Jesse, what's going on your channel for the rest of the week, man? Talk to us.
Yeah, I'm glad Jake said something, because Jake and I were actually having this conversation yesterday about how Steezy A. Smith's got a super underrated channel. He does a fantastic job. I love him filling in. He's done nothing but great things. Looking forward to watching you grow this year. And yeah, definitely subscribe to Roundtable Sports. Here's the other thing that you don't know. We're all very competitive. And even though we hate each other's teams, we are on the same team when it comes to the NFC West, and we want to beat every other division this year. Now, I think probably past week 8, it won't be that hard because a lot of these other teams, quite frankly, suck. But up until then, you got a lot of excitement for the first 4 weeks before they start looking towards the draft and trying to figure out what they're going to talk about. So that means we've got to have your help. Every like button, every subscribe that we get from you guys is crucial towards winning this whole thing. That being said, you can check me out over at Last Second Sports. I've always got something going on. 49ers play Friday. They're going to play most of their starters, so there's going to be plenty to talk about.
Absolutely beautiful. You hyped me up about Roundtable Sports with that, man. I love that. I loved that. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the NFC West Roundtable. Smash that like button on your way out. Subscribe. Turn on bell notifications. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday at 9 p.m. EST.